Space is already weirder than science fiction. The sun you see is running late. Whole planets keep impossible schedules. Some worlds have seasons that last decades. One moon is quietly slipping away from you. Another planet could float in a giant bathtub. A sunset on one world glows blue. On another, the sun rises backward. There are storms older than entire countries. There are mountains that make Everest look tiny. There are spacecraft still leaving home decades later. And somehow, the strangest fact might be the last one. At number 20, every sunrise you see is already history by the time it reaches your eyes. NASA says sunlight takes about 8 minutes to travel from the sun to Earth. That means if the sun changed right now, your sky would keep acting normal for a few minutes. You are always seeing the sun as it was, not exactly as it is. That delay is tiny by cosmic standards, but it means your morning light always arrives a little late. At number 19, the sun is so huge that it holds 99.8% of our solar system's mass. NASA says more than 330,000 Earths would equal the sun's mass. By volume, about 1.3 million Earths could fit inside it. Almost everything else orbiting it is basically leftover material from the sun's formation story. And yet, compared with many stars, our sun is only medium-sized. And the next fact makes even our entire solar system feel tiny. Our solar system races around the Milky Way at about 515,000 miles per hour. Even moving that fast, one trip around the galaxy takes roughly 230 million years. The last time Earth was in this galactic neighborhood, life here looked wildly different. In space terms, your planet is sprinting even when you feel completely still. Your whole lifetime is basically a tiny shuffle during one giant galactic lap. Mercury sounds speedy because it circles the sun in just 88 Earth days. But one full Mercury day-night cycle lasts 176 Earth days, longer than 2 Mercury years. NASA says its odd orbit can make the sun appear to rise, set, and rise again. Mercury also spins almost perfectly upright, so it barely gets seasons at all. So on Mercury, even sunrise has commitment issues. But the next planet somehow turns time into an even bigger joke. A day on Venus lasts 243 Earth days, which is longer than its 225-day year. Venus also spins backward, so the sun would rise in the west and set in the east. That slow backward spin helps make Venus one of the strangest clocks in the solar system. Its thick atmosphere also traps heat so efficiently that Venus is even hotter than Mercury. And yes, your birthday there could arrive before your first full day ends. Your moon is slowly moving away from Earth by about an inch every year. NASA also says about 30 Earth-sized planets could fit in the space between Earth and the moon. That distance is why eclipses, tides, and moonrises feel so huge in your sky. The slow retreat is invisible to you day to day, but instruments can measure it. Even something that looks close can be mind-bendingly far in space. The moon has only a very thin, weak atmosphere, so there is almost no weather to erase tracks. That is why astronaut footprints and rover marks can last for incredibly long periods. The moon's weak atmosphere also offers almost no protection from radiation or meteoroid impacts. NASA also confirmed water ice in permanently shadowed craters near the lunar poles. So the moon is both a dusty time capsule and a freezer. And now we leave the moon for a planet that goes completely over the top. Mars has the largest volcano in the solar system, and it is absurdly big. Olympus Mons rises more than 25 miles from base to summit according to NASA. Its base covers an area about as large as Arizona. Mars also has nearly the same surface area as all of Earth's dry land. Everest looks impressive, but Mars brought a whole cheat code. Mars also has Valles Marineris, the largest canyon system in the solar system. NASA says it stretches about 2,400 miles long and drops as much as 5.8 miles deep. It is more than 10 times longer and wider than Earth's Grand Canyon. Mars really seems designed by someone who kept pressing the bigger button. But Jupiter does not do subtle either, and this is where it gets ridiculous. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system, but it spins faster than any other planet. One Jovian day takes only about 9.9 hours. Sunlight also needs about 43 minutes to reach Jupiter from the Sun. So a place big enough to fit roughly 1,000 Earths inside still burns through daylight before lunch. Big does not mean slow when gravity is flexing. Jupiter's Great Red Spot is a giant storm bigger than Earth. NASA says that storm has raged for hundreds of years. At Jupiter's poles, giant cyclones also cluster in stable geometric patterns. Recent measurements also show the Great Red Spot reaches hundreds of miles below the cloud tops. So Jupiter has weather systems that feel less like storms and more like permanent landmarks. And somehow, the next giant planet is even weirder in a completely different way. Saturn is so low in density that NASA says it could float in water. Obviously, you would need the biggest bathtub in the universe, but the physics checks out. It is still a giant world made mostly of hydrogen and helium. Sunlight takes about 80 minutes to reach Saturn, so even daylight gets stretched out there. So yes, a planet can be enormous and still lose a density contest with bathwater. Saturn's rings spread out for about 175,000 miles from the planet. But in the main rings, the vertical height is typically only about 30 feet. That means something wide enough to stun you from space is thinner than many houses are tall. The particles inside them range from tiny grains to chunks as big as houses. The rings are basically cosmic paper just with better lighting. Now the next planet ignores normal behavior so hard it looks tipped over on purpose. Uranus rotates with a tilt of about 97.77 degrees. NASA says that makes it appear to spin sideways, almost like a rolling ball. Because of that extreme tilt, parts of Uranus can get 21-year-long winters. Uranus also rotates in the opposite direction from most planets, just like Venus. A season there lasts longer than most people stay in one job. Neptune is so far from the Sun that 1 year there lasts about 165 Earth years. NASA notes that sunlight needs 4 hours just to reach Neptune. The planet finished its first full orbit since discovery only in 2011. At high noon on Neptune, the sunlight would look more like dim twilight to you. So, if you were born there, a first birthday party would be a family heirloom. Neptune is the windiest world in the solar system. Its winds can whip across the planet at more than 1,200 miles per hour. That is several times stronger than Jupiter's winds and far beyond Earth's strongest storms. The weird part is that Neptune gets so little sunlight, yet still goes absolutely wild. And now the cold gets stranger because the next world barely gets noon at all. At midday on Pluto, sunlight is only about 1/900th as bright as it is on Earth. NASA says a sunset here on Earth can match the brightness of noon on Pluto. Pluto is also only about 1,400 miles wide, smaller than many people picture. Sunlight needs about 5.5 hours to reach Pluto from the Sun. So this former 9th planet feels less like a world map and more like a frozen secret. The International Space Station moves at about 5 miles every second. NASA says it circles Earth roughly every 90 minutes and sees 16 sunrises and sunsets a day. In 1 day, it travels about the same distance as a trip to the moon and back. The station is larger than a 6-bedroom house, complete with places to sleep, exercise, and work. So astronauts live inside a lab that turns Earth into a time-lapse. Astronauts say space itself leaves a smell behind after spacewalks. NASA has described reports ranging from metallic and ozone-like to welding fumes and gunpowder. They do not smell it outside, but on suits and gear after returning inside. NASA even worked with a fragrance maker to recreate that smell for training simulations. Space somehow manages to have a signature scent without acting normal about it. Voyager 1 entered interstellar space in 2012, and Voyager 2 followed in 2018. NASA says both spacecraft crossed the heliosphere's boundary but still have thousands of years left in the Oort cloud. So even after leaving the neighborhood, they are still technically inside the Sun's greater frontier. The wildest part may be this: humanity built messages that are still traveling into forever. The next time you look up, remember you are standing on a world inside all of that. If one of these facts scrambled your brain a little, that is honestly the correct reaction. If true things that sound made up are your favorite kind of stories, stick with Zorp facts. And if one fact deserves its own deep dive, jump into the next video, because this rabbit hole only gets weirder.